What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, nieces and nephews? Welcome back to another episode of Too Good to Be Drew. I'm your host, Uncle Drew, coming in hot on a Monday, and I hope you are too. Oh, I'm just rhyming. I become a poet slowly but surely, just becoming a poet. Hopefully, everybody had a good holiday weekend. I hope they went and grabbed some food and some barbecue. I hope they knew what governor to put on themselves so they didn't eat too much, so that they skipped the gym this morning or that they're off track for this week. Whatever you put in your body for that holiday, it was your choice and your choice only. You knew you were getting into as we were coming up on it. So I hope you approached it like you should have, which is not being too gluttonous and focusing and knowing that you have a summer body to keep. And there are a couple of months left in the summer. But it's good to have you back on this Monday. And Mondays are very special because, like I said, it's the way we start the week. And I have a cup on my desk, and it's full of quotes, laminated quotes that I've accumulated over a while. And a lot of these quotes mean a lot to me. They give me motivation, they get me started, they help me push through. They do all these very special things for me. And I hope that these quotes can be that same thing for you. I know all of them won't be on point. All of them won't, sit well with your soul or be something that thrusts you forward exponentially. But I just hope that one or two every now and then really stick with you and you decide to write those down, put them somewhere special that you can look at them, that you can memorize them, that you can know them by heart, and that they can help you through some trouble sometimes or just to get started on days where you really don't have it. And today we have a great quote by one of my favorite poets, writers, novelists, Audre Lorde. I have come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal, and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood. Mm, I really like that quote. And I really, really like that quote because as I've gone to acting school and become more creative with everything that I'm doing, I realize how hard it is to create, to write, to think of something, to put your ideas on paper or put them into motion. And then I also realize how much harder it is to actually put those out into the world for other people to extend or put judgment on them. But we all have some important things to say. We all have important ideas. We all have a purpose on this earth. And our voice and what's in our mind gives us a chance to relay that to other people and speak that on bigger platforms. And it's a very, very good quote because it speaks to a lot of the things that I'm currently going through right now. Where I started this podcast or this show, I should say. And I started this show and I didn't really think like it was going to have a big impact or I would start doing it and kind of see where it went and kind of build as it goes. I didn't know if it was valuable, if my ideas were valuable or if my voice was valuable. But one thing that's happened through this whole process is that my personality and my view of life has continued to seep through. And I've always, not always, actually, I'll take that back. It took a while for me to get very kind of optimistic or just be a realist. I tell people that I'm a realist. And I look at the glass as half full most of the time, or I just see what good that I can take out of a situation and kind of put my own little spin on it. But I got a text from a friend as I've been doing these podcasts. Text messages have been rolling in. And I greatly appreciate everyone that's listening. I greatly appreciate all the people in my circle that send me a text about episodes or things that I said that stood out to them that are helping them in a time of need right now. And I want to take the time to read one from a very special person who I've known for about 20 years. And, we keep in constant contact and we always just, it's not that we talk every day, but we reach out every couple months and we're real familiar with each other. But it's things like this that let me know I'm doing the right thing. And that's why I appreciate it. He said, "Love you, my guy, on an early morning walk, trying to enjoy the time I can find clarity. Morning is typically it. Truly appreciate who you are as a man and the things you are doing to put positivity into the world. I have a tendency to be a pessimist first, optimistic second, but your content is always a good point of reference for me to remember that there are good people out there doing good things. Keep it going. Even if I miss one of your threads or IG posts, know that I am appreciating the content 100% of the time. Love you, big guy." Man, whew, trying to keep it together. Um, it's it's stuff like that, man. It's messages like that where you never know what somebody's going through. And a lot of us are going through a lot of the same things. We're seeing the world the same way right now and everything that's going on. We might have different viewpoints, but we're seeing it the same, if that makes sense. Um, but messages like those, man, they really strike a chord really deep in me, and it makes me realize how deep my connections to people have gone, or my relationships to people have been, from the inceptions of those relationships to building it to maintaining it, to investing in it and reinvesting in it. And it's just those things that I really, really cherish. So thank you for that message. So, a very important section of Miss Lord's quote was that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal, and shared. And even though she says, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood, those middle parts speak out to me, because if we don't let people know what we're going through, or if we don't let people know what we're thinking, or if we don't use our mouths and our gifts that God has given us, they go unheard and they go unused to people that can possibly use it. And through me doing this podcast and show, like I said, there's been so many people that have reached out, but never in my wildest dreams did I thought, with me making this podcast, that the credit that I would give to people for just being there in my life or for having an impact on me would grow to be so influential, whether if it was to that specific person I'm talking to, or whether it made other people figure out who those people were or are in their lives and reached out to them. And so I hope with me doing that, and I don't do it on purpose, and I don't get on here to just talk about other people or what they did for me, and that's what the show is about. It ends up happening that way organically. And I mean organically, because I sometimes I get on a tangent and I just go, and then I look up and I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and not give credit to people in my life that have made me the person that I am today. And so I appreciate every one of those people. And if you're listening to this right now and that's you, love you and I appreciate you. And I hope we can touch base soon. But as we pivot and change the message for today, and I wipe these tears from my eyes, I've always told everyone that I'm a lifelong learner. The people that are tuning in, I'm a avid reader. I just completed the 14th book of this year with plans to read 26. And we've set a reading goal for the last about 3 or 4 years of my life. And we've done pretty steady at that. And it's not about the amount of books that we read, it's about the quality of books that we read. And so anybody that knows, my business name is quality over quantity. So instead of us getting out here and reading and making a goal 100 books, let's make the goal between 20 and 30 books, and let's read those books. Let's pull something from it, and let's disseminate and give that information to others. There are two books that I'm reading right now that are really instrumental with a lot of the things that I'm talking about on this show, and that kind of weave and intertwine things that I've been saying and messages that I've been pushing. And I think it's important to talk about those. One of those books is This Thing of Ours by Frederick Joseph. I just finished this book last week, and we jumped on the Bookum app to discuss it with the founder of Bookum, and then the author, and then a couple other gentlemen who are really smart and intelligent that I follow, and I really respect their input and the work they've done across social media and what they're doing in their lives. And we had a very interesting hour conversation with the author, and he was able to answer some questions of ours and talk about the book, and it was really, really neat. So if you haven't read This Thing of Ours by Frederick Joseph, I would definitely tell you to go buy the book, buy it for your son, your daughter, a younger person, a mentee that you have in your life, especially if they're an athlete, because it really hits home on a lot of points that we go through with athletes when they suffer an injury and now they're trying to figure out who they are outside of their sport, or if they didn't have their sport. And I think it's very important. But outside of that, there were a lot of big things in this story that were hit on. And I think that young people will love it. And I also think parents and the older generation will appreciate that there's so much substance in this book. And so, in this discussion in the book with the main character, his name is Aussie. And without telling you guys too much, he has an injury and he's trying to figure out his life through there. And through this injury, we see that he has a lot of advocates in his life. And those advocates come in the form of his grandmother, his teacher, and also his guidance counselor, or his counselor in his high school. Aussie is a junior in high school at the beginning of this story, but after he suffers his injury, he's pretty much going into his senior year and he's not being able to play basketball this year. And so with that, he has to really think of what is my life going to look like as I'm getting ready for college. And although he's in this funk of what that looks like, These three people step up and they're like, hey, well, we don't know what's up with basketball, but we know you have too much potential to waste. And it brought me back to a little bit of my life and the people I had surrounding me. Luckily, when I had the injuries I had, one was when I was very young. I broke my ankle sliding into third base my eighth grade year. So I had to miss football that next year or football that next fall. And so that was one of the first times I had football taken away from me. And then after that, the next time I suffered a major injury or major setback was when I was at college at the University of Oregon and I tore my ACL after my very first start. And so I was lucky because I've had advocates and I've had coaches who have fought for me my whole life and who've also just poured into me as a young man. I think they recognized that I was a really good football player, but they didn't tell me that the only thing I was good at or the only thing that I would excel at was football. They built me up in other ways. They poured into me, and I want to thank them for that. But it was because of them that, when I suffered this setback or this injury in college, I was able to come back even stronger. I was able to pour into myself outside of sports and really think about what else I was good at. And so that's why it's so important for us to put advocates and mentors in and around our young people's lives. Parents, we know you can only do so much. Uncles and aunts, you can only do so much, or you guys are kind of that of a pillar of somebody that they can come to that's not mom and dad, but you're also cool and you know what I mean, that they can talk to you and discuss some certain things. But you have a responsibility of where you can connect to this younger generation, listen to them, but also just give them some game and help guide them. We see the potential in these young people, like I said, I had somebody to see that potential in me. And so if somebody hadn't seen that potential in me outside of being an athlete, even though my parents beat into me getting good grades and things like that, it took those other people to be around me and in my life for me to put my best foot forward, when I was at rock bottom. And I definitely appreciate them for that. During this discussion, when we were meeting about the book, there was somebody on the panel that had said something about him not really having any books that he liked to read about growing up. And it took until he had a teacher that saw potential in him or that gave him books or materials that he soon was like, oh, okay, this is what writing could be. He started getting materials and stories that he saw characters or he saw things in there that reflected things in his life that gave him a new outlook on literature and authors and what writing could be. Author Frederick T. Joseph then began to talk about how he's had one Black teacher throughout high school, college, even after that, grad school, I want to say, I think he went to. And so you have such a small sample size of having a teacher that looked like you and was able to affect your writing. Now, I forgot 100% if he actually said, like, this is a teacher I bonded and connected the most with, but he was saying, like, yo, I'm a Black writer. And as a Black writer, I've only had one teacher that was Black, whether that was in writing or just, a teacher that they were taking courses from. And that's big. And so when we're talking about young Black and brown boys and them being able to see what they want to be, if they don't even come in contact with people that look like them throughout all levels of education, how can we continue to push them towards greatness when they're not seeing or not being supported or not having this support system of people around them who look like them, who can know their experience and know what they go through and be able to push them and pour into them? And I think that's why this story with Aussie is so important because he has two Black women in the school who, they look at him and they see more than an athlete, but they see an athlete who they have to help find his identity and that they know that there's greatness in him and that they have to push him towards something else and that they're not going to let him be a statistic or be one of those people that were, hey, he was a really good basketball player, then he got hurt. And, after that, it was it. No, cool. You got hurt. Your body is what can make you money, but your mind is what can help excel you through your life. And so, once again, if you haven't read that book, I want you to go back, pick it up for your kids, buy it for your household, just have it in there. It's a very, very good read. I enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I was really just, enthralled in it, enthralled, one of the two. And the story hit pretty close to home because it's like, how do you respond to an injury when basketball is what you know, when you're the number one player in the country, when you had scholarship offers from the East Coast all the way to the West, to now your future being undecided and college looking like it might not even happen. I think that's very important. I think a lot of our young boys go through that who are athletes when things don't work out, and then after that it's just woe is me. So what can we do as a collective to make sure that things like this don't happen? And I think reading this book and having a discussion about it is a really, really good start. Now, the second book I'm reading is a book by Ryan Leake called Leveling Up. And I've seen Ryan Leak all over social media. He's a tall, slim black dude, really clean cut, wears some glasses. But he controls the stage really well. He's a speaker, he's an executive coach, he's an author. And I want to say this, he's written a couple books before. Well, I will say this. He has written a couple books. I think this is the first or second book that he's written, but don't take my word for it. Um, and with me as a coach, I always want to make sure that I'm doing self development as well. I read a lot so that I can put books in other people's hands, whether they're clients, whether they're athletes, that will really help them with some of the things that they're going through. And I think being able to sit down, read, ingest, and digest the information is very important for people to do. And that's why I challenge people to read. But Ryan Leake, I saw him talking on stage and I see a little bit of his content and I really, really like it. It's along the lines of things that I would like to do on a bigger platform. But as I was searching for my next book, I always keep a book on Kindle because that helps me keep my reading streak. And currently we are at 905 days. Sorry, I had to take a peek. 905 consecutive days. I think it's about 130 consecutive weeks of reading. You can go back and listen to the episode, I think called Reading Rainbow, where I talk about that. So I got this book because as a coach, I wanted to make sure I continued with my self development. I wanted to make sure that I could continue with my growth so that when others ask me, yo, what are you doing to get better, Drew? That I can have an answer for them. One of the interesting things he discusses in this book is he talks about credit versus blame. And he talks about teams or organizations or businesses. A lot of times when he's called in and he's asking what's the problem or he's trying to get them to a solution, it's a lot of people blaming and not a lot of people giving credit for stuff. It's a lot of people being quick to point the finger when bad things happen and not being quick to point the finger when good things happen. And so, like I talked about at the beginning of this episode, where I had people hit me up because I gave them credit for something, it is not my intention to do that, but it made sense now that I read this book is that I give credit where credit is due because I want to make sure people know what the resume of work looks like and who was responsible for that. And so if we could think back to a job we worked or anything we've done, we feel really good when somebody gives us credit, even when they don't have to. Think about when you plan a big birthday party or something. Like, even though you wanted to do it and then maybe it was your responsibility or obligation, but when somebody takes the time out to say, hey, thank you, Brianna, for doing this birthday party and making all this possible. When somebody giving you credit, that makes it well worth it. That makes you feel seen. That makes you feel heard. That lets you know that somebody appreciates the work and the time and the effort that you put into this. That's what Ryan Leake talks about in his book. And that's how you make great teams or a great environment, by doing things like this. When you're using this system of blaming or pointing the finger, you're running away or you're shunning the responsibility. And if you're a leader or you're in a leadership position and the people that work under you see that and they see you blaming people or they see you throwing people under the bus, they're not going to want to rock with you. They're not going to want to stand up for you. They're not going to want to have drinks with you outside of work because you've shown them like, hey, if it comes between me and you, I'm definitely going to choose you, which is one of the most messed up things I can say. But there are people like that in the world. But imagine if you had a boss who, when there was blame or it was something that was your fault, that they said, hey, it's on me. I got the email out late or I didn't let such and such know. So, hey, I'll take the blame. That's on me. It won't happen again. If you're the person that's working for that dude or for that man or that woman, it makes you be like, dang, well, this was totally my fault. But they were able to sit here and tell the big bosses that it was his fault. Man, I'll work a little bit harder for him. I'll make sure just for him, I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. And it helps build that relationship. And just imagine when the big bosses are giving, your director or your manager credit for things that your department did. And he stands up and he goes, "Hey, I appreciate you giving me the credit, but it was all because Laura and Cindy and Michael did some great work that's how we got this done. And they really put in some long hours and they were really focused about what they were doing. So as much as I would like to take credit, the credit needs to really go to those three people because they've been awesome and outstanding." Wow. Like it's as simple as that. And for me playing sports, that's what it's been about. Like you have a interview after the game and all the reporters are asking about your performance. "Hey, Drew, you had two catches for 300 yards," which is physically impossible, but you can dream. "Hey, Drew, you had two catches for 300 yards, two touchdowns. You made a big block on that third down play to spring the running back for a 70-yard touchdown. Tell us about how you were able to do that." "Oh, well, I had a really good game, but our offensive line did a great job in pass protection. They made it so the quarterback had a really, really good pocket to throw from. And then the running back, he just has great vision and he's really talented. So I just wanted to make sure I got my block because I knew if I did that he would be able to go all the way. The line opened up a really big hole for him. And after that, that's all she wrote. Night night." That's how you give credit. When people are looking at you and people are giving you adulation for what you've done, that's how you go into a room and you shift all this good praise that's going to you and you spread that around to the other people that can also get a lift from that. Because it's not possible for us to do what we do without help. Nothing that we've done in life, nothing that we will do will be solely our own doing. There's always somebody pouring into us. There's always somebody there that's there to support us, to catch us when we fall, to give us an idea or a direction to go in order for us to be successful. There's always someone that's pouring into us. And so for us to give credit is that respectable piece of us paying that homage back to them and saying thank you. And it cost us nothing, absolutely nothing to give other people credit. So I hope as you live your life and you go out into the world, whether that's at work, at home, with your friends, I hope you continue to just give credit where credit is due, even when it's not asked for, even when it's not called for. I hope you continue to give people credit and give them their flowers because unless we speak and tell them how we feel, they don't know. And I think more so than us telling them directly, when we tell those people that are surrounding them about the great things that they are doing or the things that they've done, it makes it even more valuable. It strengthens the relationship and it just also makes it more realistic. And it also makes it more genuine, especially when it's coming from a place of truth. As we wrap up the show, we're going to finally get into a listener's question. If you guys have questions, go to my website, drewjaydavis.com. Click on the contact page, type your question in there, press send. It'll come directly to me, and you'll hear it read on the show. So don't miss out. Do that. Why not? It's free. Why wouldn't you? And so the question we have today comes from a guy named Chris. How can I stop comparing myself to others and feel more confident in my own path? I appreciate you writing that, Chris. I think people not comparing themselves to others is something that's really, really big these days. You look on Instagram, you look on Facebook, people are only showing the highlights of what's happening in their life. Their marriage can be falling apart, they can be dead broke, they can be going through health problems, but they might only show you the good things and therefore it makes you a little bit confused. I would say in order to stop the comparison thing, you have to be comfortable with the things that are going on in and around your life. If there are some things that you're not happy with, I hope that you dig in to adjust them or to really seek a solution from them, whether that's relationships, your job, your health, if they're your relationship with your kids. If there are some things that make you uneasy or some things that you're not proud of, my biggest advice to you would be to address those things to see how you can improve them, what you can do to improve them. One reason you might be comparing yourself to others is that you're insecure with what's going on in your life right now. So the only way to be secure about what's going on around you is to be confident in the work that you've put in and how you want it to be. Nothing will ever be 100% unicorns and daffodils, like I always like to say. I always tell my clients one thing that you can do to better these situations is to pour more time and effort in, to ask questions about it. If your relationship isn't great with your wife or your girlfriend, sit down and have that conversation. Maybe it's more dates, maybe it's more quality time, maybe it's more chores or splitting chores around the house, cooking dinner. I'm not sure. But you got to have those conversations and you got to be vulnerable with those conversations and letting someone know exactly what you're going through. And I spoke a little earlier about confidence, and confidence comes from being prepared. Confidence comes from putting the time in. So if you're putting the time in to find these problems or to find exactly what it is that you are comparing yourself to others for, and once you pinpoint exactly why, starting to break down that why is going to help. And then also putting a plan in action on how you won't feel that way. Now, if you're jealous about a guy that you follow who's, driving a Ferrari and you're comparing your Mini Cooper or your station wagon to his Ferrari, yeah, you're going to feel a little bit insecure about where you're at in life. But if you say, I got this station wagon because I got a whole family that I got to fit in here, that I'm lucky enough to have a wife and three kids and two dogs, and we need all this space when we go camping, then that's what you have it for. And that's a good thing. The person that has that Ferrari, from what I know about Ferraris, there's only one other person getting in there. And they might be going short trips. I don't think they going from California to New York and blazing a trail and putting all those miles on a Ferrari. But I know we all have certain things in our life for certain reasons. So once you get more comfortable with that and why you have what you have and what you want to have to be conducive for your life, I think that's when you'll become more confident in what you have and not comparing yourself to others. So once again, I appreciate you, Chris, for sending that question in. It's greatly appreciated. And once again, we've come to the end of an episode. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys for all the love that you're sending my way. That's another episode of Too Good to Be Drew. I'm Uncle Drew, and I'll holler at you guys soon. Stay healthy.